Hello, my friends around the world and children of all ages. Uh, I lost my voice and I was supposed to sing at two weddings today, and I have a radio program tomorrow night, and I'm hoping my voice comes back by tomorrow night. Why am I reading one of my writings when I lost my voice? Um, because I think sometimes you lose your voice because you're afraid to speak your truths. So this is one of the writings I wrote a long time ago, and I published in two of my books. But I hid them way at the end of the books, always between other writings that if you got through all those writings, you'd probably not have a brain left to have an idea about what this writing is about. So anyway, I kind of hid it at the end of shocking writings so you couldn't be any more shocked. But anyway, now I finally feel I need to speak my truth. I've been wanting to read this for a long time on a YouTube video. I read many of the writings from my other books on my podcast, and this wasn't one that I read. And then I read many of my other writings on my radio program and on YouTube. So, but this is the one I haven't touched. And I think it's finally time, and if I read it, I'll finally get my voice back. So that's what I'm hoping. So here goes. It's called Why Did I Really Go to Soka University of America? There are many reasons why I, at age 30, wanted to go to SUA, many of which I have covered in other writings. My dreams have always been to be a singer-songwriter and musician, and also to be a writer of many books. However, I have never cared for fame and fortune. My writing and singing has always been my weapon against greed, hostility, and ignorance, and my attempt to be true to my vow as a bodhisattva. All I have ever tried to do was to wake people up, the way Shakyamuni did in India. My ex-wife told me many times, quote, "I don't want to be married to a famous person," end quote. Therefore, I had repeatedly told her, "I care nothing about fame." She said, quote, "But you say you want to be a successful musician and a successful writer. If it's not for fame, what do you mean by successful?" End quote. I told her, quote, "If my novel, other books, or my CDs could in some way stop these barbarous wars, barbarous I put, stop these barbarous wars on the people of Iraq and Afghanistan, then I will feel I'm successful," end quote. I have also tried with my music to do as my mentor Daisaku Ikeda asks, to, quote, "transcend vanity as well as musical techniques and ability, and to, quote, inspire people to attain their human revolution," end quote. Those are both quotes from the President Ikeda's Precepts for Brass Band, which I read over and over when I was a young kid, and which the reason why I wanted to become a musician and a singer-songwriter. At the time that SUA was being built in Orange County, California, I was an SGI-USA area Young Men's Division, which is YMD, leader, and also an SGI-USA Vice Regional leader, both in Orange County, California, where SUA was built. On top of my many youth division leadership responsibilities and working full-time in banking sales, I was playing in a band every weekend. I was attending night school, and I was writing a novel. I was also in about 6 different progressive organizations in Los Angeles and Orange County. Some of those, if I can remember, were the Fair Trade Network, the Hemp Council of Orange County, D2KLA, I can't remember all the ones. That was a long time ago. Anyway, I was in many progressive organizations and I was very busy. Okay, in 1999, party like it's 1999, the SUA kicked off its, quote, Victory Over Violence, or VOV, campaign in the US, and I threw my life into it. I was happy that the VOV manual made by youths in Los Angeles included a list of just how many countries the US has bombed, and it was over 50 in its history, and how not one of those countries became a democracy afterwards. This despite U.S. politicians having said that these bombing campaigns were supposedly to help the spread of democracy in other countries. I was also happy that the VOV promotional video included a campaign to end child labor and the example of people who stood up for social justice. Sorry, along with my voice being gone, I can't even speak. I should take a drink. And what do you know? I ran out of tea. Okay, I'm trying to hydrate myself, but I keep getting more dehydrated as I try to hydrate myself. Okay. In 1999, I performed in the SGI-USA Grand Youth Culture Festival in Los Angeles, which was a grand enactment of many social justice movements in history. And I was so happy at our practices that we studied the histories of people like Jose Marti, Nelson Mandela, Linus Pauling, Martin Luther King Jr., Gandhi, and others, who were all very active in social justice, peace, and human rights struggles. At this time, 1999, the U.S. government under Clinton was bombing schools, hospitals, television stations, bridges, power plants, foreign embassies, electric power grids, food storage plants, fleeing refugees, and the entire civilian infrastructure of the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, where my grandparents were born. Okay. In addition to this, the U.S. was waging a genocidal sanction program on the people of Iraq, which had killed upwards of 500,000 children over a 7-year period. To top it off, though unreported in the U.S. corporate media, the U.S. was continuing a 10-year-long weekly bombing campaign on so-called military targets in Iraq. Some of those military targets were water processing facilities, food plants, basically the whole infrastructure of the civilians of Iraq was called military targets at the time, and it wasn't reported at all in the media, which was devastating the social infrastructure of that country. Therefore, after VOV meetings, I would take some of my youth members to protest rallies against these immoral, unjust, and illegal actions of the U.S. government. It was illegal because the U.S. government did not declare war, but they were bombing weekly in an undeclared war, which is against the Constitution. It's illegal both in international law and public law and in U.S. law. Okay, and I would give out flyers to the many people at these protest marches and rallies explaining the SGI-USA's victory over violence activities and a play about Linus Pauling's life that was being put on by SGI-USA youth members in California. At times, I would give talks at some of these anti-war rallies, and I would say I was from the SGI-USA, usually not saying I was a youth leader. And I would tell the attendees that SGI-USA was now having a victory over violence campaign, which I would encourage them to come and be part of. At this time in the U.S., or at this time in the SGI-USA, we were talking a lot about the power of one. So at district meetings throughout Orange County, I would play a video created by the School of the Americas Watch, otherwise known as SOAW, about the history of a growing protest movement against the U.S. Army School of the Americas, led by one courageous man, Father Roy Bourgeois. I had met him a few times at a few lectures he had given in Southern California. I felt at the time that he was the greatest example of someone in the U.S. exhibiting, quote, the power of one, which was our key phrase at the time, as he was single-handedly leading a movement to close down one of the greatest terrorist camps in the U.S. It still hasn't closed down. Okay, at one of his talks in Orange County, I asked him if the SGI-USA Youth Chorus in Orange County could sing an anti-war song I had written at his next lecture. That song was, I wrote it for the chorus, and actually 5 or 6 chorus members sang it with me. We never actually performed it because we didn't get the chance before I went to SUA. It was called Cosmic Dance. Someday I'll have a whole chorus. I had actually my chorus in Sendai, my junior high school chorus, sing it at their graduation, which was really beautiful. I wish I made a video of that. I also invited Blaise Bompain from the Office of the Americas, a human rights organization based in Los Angeles, and a commentator on Pacifica Radio to give a talk at the Santa Ana Community Center. He ended up not giving that talk, and the reason he didn't give that talk is he kept saying, "Is the SGI a cult?" And I said, "I don't know what a cult is. Can you please tell me what a cult is?" And knowing he's a minister of the gospel, I wanted to hear his take on what a cult was, because Christianity has long been a cult until it got too big to outlive the title. I guess a cult is when they're not big enough to be called a religion. They're called a cult until they become a religion. So I wanted to hear his take. So he said a cult is when one person is looked up to above everyone else. And I said, oh, kind of like Jesus Christ. And he didn't know what to say, and he said, "I'm sorry, I can't talk at your community center." But then, luckily, when I became a student at SUA, he did talk at SUA, and then he ended up talking at the Friendship Center up in LA. So I was glad. I was like 3 years ahead of my time before he would finally get over his thought that the SGI was a cult, which is a complete joke. Okay. And I love being on cult websites, because those websites are such fucking bullshit websites. Anyway, I'm going to go on. So he didn't speak then, but he later spoke. But I was the one who first got him to speak at got him to come to the idea. He was going to speak, and he was planned to speak, but he ended up canceling at the last moment. Anyway, he finally spoke at many community centers in the SGI, luckily. Okay. The more I got involved in the Victory Over Violence movement, the more the conservative leadership in SGI-USA Orange County and the SGI-USA national leadership began getting concerned. Their fear, they told me at the time, as they grilled me for hours in the back of the Santa Ana Community Center, was not that what I was saying was wrong, because they couldn't claim anything I was saying was wrong, or that what I was saying was incorrect, same thing, but that SGI-USA was too small and it could not withstand the attacks that would come down upon it if we became, quote, politically active. And I wasn't being politically active. I was being a bodhisattva, which we'll talk about later. But they called it being politically active because that's the one way of silencing people. Okay, they said I could not say in public I was from the SGI at political rallies because my views were not necessarily the views of SGI USA. And they did say that, not necessarily, because they didn't want to say they weren't. Okay, therefore I decided to lay low for a little while, and I started writing long letters which I would fax from the regional SGI USA office fax machine directly to SGI headquarters in Shinonamachi, Tokyo, to SGI president, the founder of Soka University, Daisaku Ikeda. In them, I asked Daisaku Ikeda, quote, "Are we supposed to study the great revolutionary activities of people like Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. and admire them in words, but not be involved in the struggles they were involved in," end quote. I asked him if the conservative leadership of the Soka Gakkai in Japan were as equally concerned when he stood up to the injustices of union workers in Hokkaido, or when he got involved in political campaigns in Osaka in the 1950s, which led to his false imprisonment. I asked him if he was ever worried that the Soka Gakkai was too weak at the time to stand up to the criticism his activism as a youth leader would bring upon the Soka Gakkai. I further asked him, quote, "In your great poem entitled 'To My Young American Friends,' you write, 'Faith is to fear nothing, to stand unswayed, the power to surmount any obstacles,' end quote. What did you really mean by this?" Of course, I knew what he meant by this, but of course my other youth leaders who were grilling me didn't have any idea what it meant to fear nothing because they were chicken shits. Anyway, I never expected a personal letter back from Daisaku Ikeda, and I knew I would find the answer to my inquiries in his future writings. However, to my surprise, every time after I wrote a letter to Daisaku Ikeda, the SGI-USA World Tribune would have a new writing by Daisaku Ikeda that addressed all of my concerns. I was really blown away. Every one of the World Tribunes, every letter I wrote him was exactly what I asked him. He was boom, 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 right on. And I was just like, okay, these are personal letters to me, even though everything he writes goes in one ear and one out the other ear for most people. They're like, he's saying good stuff. It sounds really good. Yep, 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 yep. But they're not like digesting it. He's actually saying stand up and take charge, but everyone's like trying to find a leader to follow. Anyway, he is the greatest leader that will ever be on this planet until you wake up and be that leader that you're waiting to find. Okay. In his many writings at the time, Daisaku Ikeda wrote about how Martin Luther King Jr. and Gandhi received the same criticism about their activities for social justice. He also wrote that other leaders in King's congregation told King he was, quote, a religious leader, not a political leader, unquote, and that he should leave his sermons to talking about the gospel, not the struggle for equal rights and against the war in Vietnam. From Daisaku Ikeda's writings, it was very clear to me that one cannot separate the struggle for Kozen Rufu with the social struggles for human rights, environmental protection, human equality, human liberation, social justice, and peace. Any feeble attempt to do so is sheer hypocrisy. These are not political issues, but human and religious issues, as Daisaku Ikeda said in all of his writings at the time. Looking back now, even if one were to insist that these were political issues, as Daisaku Ikeda wrote, paraphrasing Gandhi in volume 20 of the New Human Revolution, quote, politics too should follow the path of truth taught by religion, and that religion that abhors politics is not deserving of the name. So either Soka Gakkai isn't following a religion, or Buddhism isn't a religion, or it doesn't deserve the name. But I do agree. Daisaku Ikeda once again says, or he quotes Gandhi, politics too should follow the path of truth taught by religion, and that religion that abhors politics is not deserving of the name. So what he was saying in that writing, after I wrote the long letter about these issues, he was saying, if you're not being politically active, then you can't even call yourself a bodhisattva, basically. But he was also saying all politics and all fields of reality is all under the law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, which is the law of life. So you can't possibly be a true Buddha unless you are involved in all fields of reality. Okay, which politics is one part of that. This is when I decided that I was not going to leave the construction of Soka University of America in the hands of people who wanted to turn President Ikeda's revolutionary vision into feel-good, wordy, meaningless concepts. I was not going to let the great ideals of Soka education be co-opted like I felt the VOV movement was, by feel-good, meaningless adoration for past revolutionaries, while ignoring the many revolutionaries that are alive today and discouraging more revolutionaries from being born. Now, I wrote a lot about this in my other writings, but I feel people idolize only dead revolutionaries, and the reason they do that and they put them up on pedestals is to say you'll never be like that, and if you be like that, we're gonna attack you too. So all these people who say, oh, there's so much behind Martin Luther King and there's so much behind Gandhi, they probably haven't even read half of their writings. There was 100 volumes of books of the writings of Gandhi, and if any of these people who say, oh, I support Gandhi and I support King, even knew half of what they were about, they would be freaking out, because they are only idolizing the small fragment of those people that they can see, because the public has allowed them to see, because they're still marginalized, even though they're put on slogans and campaign banners. And so is Daisaku Ikeda, which the Daisaku Ikeda, King Ikeda Daisaku, or what is it? Gandhi King Ikeda exhibit. I really think Gandhi and King don't even, they're on like second and third tiers, and Daisaku Ikeda is way up here if you really get into what he's all about. But you'll never get into what he's all about because you'll never realize he's you and you are him, unless you want to step into the true infinite being you are from time without beginning. Okay, go back to my writing. So they're always looking at people who are dead revolutionaries and saying, okay, these are great people because they're dead. That's what they did with that's what they did with Jesus. That's what they do with Nietzsche. That's what they do. But anyone who's alive today, they'll attack because no, he isn't yet put on the pedestal of death. So there's a chance you can be like him, and they don't want that. So anyone who idolizes the dead revolutionaries while criticizing the current revolutionaries are ones that are complete morons. Okay, I think that's enough said. Here we go. I didn't care if I had to put off the publishing of my novel for a few years or if my dreams in music would have to suffer. I was not going to let the fear of whether the SGI-USA could handle the onslaught of outside criticism, end quote, stop Soka University of America from living up to its ideals. As Daisaku Ikeda wrote, quote, we cannot truly fight for peace unless we are prepared to risk our lives, end quote. I quit my band. I promoted a capable YMD chapter leader. He was one of the ones who grilled me. To my area leadership position. I resigned my vice regional leadership position. I resigned my 6-year banking job. And at age 30, I moved into a dorm room with an 18-year-old roommate to see what I could do to make Soka University of America a real school of social justice and human rights, as Daisaku Ikeda first suggested it be called. So before he wanted to call it Soka University of America, he wanted to call it the School of Human Rights and the School of Social Justice, but people kind of talked him out of that, or not talked him out of it, but they weren't yet ready for that in America. So he's gonna, at one point in the future, it'll be changed to the name he wanted to really call it, but he realized that the people weren't ready for it. So okay, we'll call it SUA. It sounds really good, like CIA and NSA and any other acronym that easily fits on a campaign slogan. Okay, but anyways, it's really the School of Human Rights and Social Justice, which is why I went there, because I wasn't going to let Daisaku Ikeda's dream go to waste by people that just wanted to say, oh yeah, all those dead guys are cool, but don't try to be like them. Okay. Okay, yeah, they could try to silence me as an SGI-USA area and regional leader, but to hell if I was going to let them silence me as a student. Although they did try to. Actually, one of the people who grilled me in the back room tried to silence me, tried to stop me from doing the protest march that I organized, saying that the organization that was sponsoring the rally, which was my organization of students who were protest group at school, who purposely protest being an official student club, hosted the rally. So what we did, at the last minute, I got 8 other or so official groups from SUA to co-sponsor the event. So I laughed in his face. Anyway, I won't say who that is, but he was one of the many ones in the back room who grilled me. Okay. Actually, no, I take it back. He sent one other person because he was busy, but he did talk to me by email that same week that I was grilled. So he wasn't there, but he wanted to be there. So he sent a national leader, which I won't name, because they're all my brothers and friends. I know they're not yet ready for the real revolution, which is the human revolution that they're all trying to put behind them. But I'm stepping into it for them, so they'll come along with me eventually. I love them all. Okay. Many people have asked me what I think of Soka University of America now. Does it really live up to its ideals? Did the giant screen TV, which at one time pumped corporate CNN, quote, Fox News too, propaganda into the cafeteria, have anything to do with Soka ideals? No, that's why students, including myself, petitioned to stop it from being on during mealtime. So we stopped, they were playing CNN News and they were playing Fox News. They were somehow thinking that was balanced. If they played Fox News, they played CNN, that was somehow the left and the right, which is a complete joke because CNN's on the far right and Fox News is on the far right. But anything on the left doesn't even get on the damn fucking TV. Okay. Anyway, enough of my cussing. Okay. Does having Killer Coke or PepsiCo sponsored student fun excursions to amusement parks so we are forced to house their toxic drinks on campus do anything to raise future world leaders? No, I tried to fight that one. I hope students have finally gotten rid of those poisons. So I don't know if they still have the PepsiCo and the Coca-Cola vending machines on campus. I suggested they had local there's many local juice companies around Orange County and other places that could be put there. But the PepsiCo and Killer Coke, I call them Killer Coke because that was one of the labels they were given when some of their spokespeople helped kill some people in some country, but I won't go into all that. You can look it up. That was a long time ago when I wrote this writing. So I didn't really feel that. Also, those drinks are very toxic, and there's other more healthy drinks. So I've tried to fight that one. I didn't win. So I don't know if the students have done. I don't know if they probably play corporate news again in the cafeteria. I don't know. But anyway, that's one of the many fights I did. Okay, does having a war-profiting corporation providing banking services to the students fit with the ideals of SUA? No, and many students have addressed this issue, and perhaps they have changed who provides banking to the students by now. I don't know if they do. It was a company that did the banking, and we said that they were help funding the war in Afghanistan and Iraq, so we didn't want them to be the banking because that didn't fit our ideals. So we tried to protest that, and we got a lot of red tape why we couldn't change the banking. But anyway, maybe they changed it by now. I don't know. Or maybe that company no longer helps fund the war or promotes the war. I don't know. But the wars are still going on, whether it's a new president or not. I can say now that I am very proud of the years I was at SUA, that many students, faculty, and staff did many things to make the school live up to more of its ideals. However, SUA still has a long way to go. We did manage to get the school to stop using styrofoam containers as takeout containers in the cafeteria. SUA did add a fourth motto to its original 3 mottos, and the fourth motto was the creative existence of nature and humanity, which was part of the original plan, but it somehow got dumped before the school opened, and it was only 3 mottos, but they finally added the fourth motto back, which I think is essential, as we can't have human peace without respecting and being peaceful to the environment. I was happy that a student sit-in, which I helped lead, along with other members of the first 2 classes, finally got rid of a very right-wing, war-mongering, authoritarian dean of faculty. I won't name who it is, but you can look it up. I fought against him because he was, every time I tried to bring a progressive speaker to the school, he would say no, unless they're going to have a dialogue or a debate with one of his very right-wing speakers he kept bringing to the school. But then I said, how come you keep bringing these right-wingers when we can't even have, when I can't suggest someone to debate them? And he wouldn't give me an answer. But anyway, we got rid of that guy. He did a lot of terrible shit, along with writing all this stuff supporting the war and being a dean of faculty at a peace institute, which is kind of ridiculous. Okay. And he was also, okay, we finally got rid of a very right-wing, warmongering, authoritarian dean of faculty who was responsible for the unjust firing of many staff and faculty, and who was also responsible for a lot of the division between SGI faculty and non-SGI faculty. He was one of the reasons why there was a lot of people thinking SGI faculty were against non-SGI faculty, because he wasn't SGI, and he was using both sides as a divide and conquer technique so he can be on top of both sides. And I realized that very early on. He was the one behind all these things, and he was very much against both sides, and he just wanted to be on top. It's kind of like the U.S. was supporting Iraq and Iran during their hour-long war, bombing both sides, because that's how the U.S. does it. They always want to have two sides fighting each other so they can be on top, the same way this dean of faculty was. I'm proud that the march I organized led from Soka University's Founder Hall to Laguna Niguel Federal Building, the largest anti-war march in Orange County's history as of 2003, and at the time the largest media-covered event of any event at SUA's history. It was covered in 5 major newspapers, and I have all of copies of that. If anyone wants to see that, I'll put them up online. Anyway. Now there's probably been bigger events since then, but at the time, 2003, this was the largest event in all of Soka history. Finally gave the youth leaders of SGI-USA the courage, for the first time in the World Tribune's history, to make, to my knowledge anyway, it was the first time the SGI-USA leaders in all of SGI-USA, they did a full-page condemnation of Bush's planned war on the people of Iraq on the front page of the World Tribune. That was right after the march that they finally did that. So I think I was definitely an impetus for that, because a lot of those people who were on that committee that decided that were my best friends, and one of them was my faculty advisor. Okay, in that issue of the World Tribune was a 2-page centerfold spread of the pictures I sent of the SUA march and an article I wrote about the protest. This subsequently was the first article that I wrote which the World Tribune finally published, despite having written a few very well-researched op-ed pieces on Toda's call to ban all nuclear weapons, which I sent a few times to the World Tribune in the 1990s, yet never had any of them published. So that was the first time I sent many very well documented, educated op-ed pieces, which they published other people's op-ed pieces, which weren't as revolutionary, but they didn't publish any of mine. But this was the first time they, right in the centerfold was my letter about the protest, which was kind of cool. There they tried to silence me as a youth leader, but they couldn't as a student, so that was kind of funny. Okay. There are so many things that SUA still has to change, like the continued use of throwaway wooden chopsticks, which are destroying many forests in China and elsewhere, just to name a few. I don't know, maybe they got rid of the throwaway chopsticks and they got washable chopsticks, which they should have from the beginning. I told them, but I tried to fight that one. If they're going to be fighting for the environment, they shouldn't be destroying the environment. Okay, in order that the school may live up to its ideals. In addition, yes, many of the luxuries that the students enjoy do more to hinder their growth as world citizens. Having the campus in a portable trailer in downtown South Central Los Angeles and having the students sleep on the street with homeless people would perhaps make them into better fighters for peace and social justice than having them housed in resort-like facilities where their every desire is fully satisfied. But we know that won't happen anytime soon. I have faith, however, that SUA is on the right track, and there are many great students, faculty, and staff who will help it become a more ideal school in the future. Everything great takes a struggle. I have no regret now that I took off 4 years to finally get my novel published, and that I waited until now to start spreading my music throughout the world, which has been my dream since I was about 10 years old. I pray that many more such people go to SUA to fight to make the school eventually live up to its ideals. I have heard that it was students protesting at Soka University in Japan that finally got the founder, Daisaku Ikeda, to be invited to the 3rd entrance ceremony of Soka University of Japan, after administration officials didn't invite him to the first 2 years' entrance ceremonies. I'm sure that is not the same reason why Daisaku Ikeda has not yet attended any of the entrance or graduation ceremonies of SUA thus far. It most likely has to do more with the many things that still need to be reformed, sorry. It most likely has to do more with the many things that still need to be reformed in SGI Japan, as I am now learning more and more about while living in Japan. There's so many things that need to be changed here that really I don't think SUA students are ready for them to come anyway. But they're getting more and more ready every year. I was ready, but I don't think many other people were really ready. Okay, my hope is that if I have to stay in Japan, it is only because I have to help reform Soka Gakkai in Japan before Daisaku Ikeda can finally come to the US permanently. I hope I can, in my small way, be a part of that process. Thank you guys very much for listening to my writing. There's many other writings you can get on my podcast, which I'll put up soon. If you listen to my radio program, I read some of my writings sometimes there too, and I'm going to put up more and more videos. So please like and subscribe and share and do all the stuff you can do to help me get the word out. Peace out. I love you all.